Use figures. Include charts or graphs if they enhance understanding. Using figures in thesis writing. In Chapter 2, Review of Related Literature of a Thesis, effectively presenting information is crucial for clarity and comprehension. One of the most powerful ways to enhance understanding is by incorporating figures such as charts, graphs, diagrams, and tables. Figures help visualize data, compare studies, illustrate theories, and simplify complex concepts, making them essential. Tools for an engaging and well-structured literature review. This section discusses the importance of using figures, the types of figures that can be included, best practices for their use, and common mistakes to avoid when integrating them into the literature review. Importance of using figures in chapter. 2 figures are particularly useful in literature reviews for several reasons. Enhances understanding. Complex theories, relationships, and trends become easier to comprehend when represented visually. Summarizes large datasets. Instead of lengthy text-based discussions, figures can concisely present research findings, statistical trends, or thematic connections. Highlights key trends. Graphs and charts help illustrate patterns, changes, and relationships in past research over time. Improves reader engagement. A thesis filled with dense text can be overwhelming. Figures provide visual breaks that make reading more engaging. Facilitates comparisons. Using tables or charts, researchers can compare multiple studies side by side, highlighting similarities and differences. By integrating well-designed figures, a literature review can become more organized, visually, appealing, and reader-friendly. Types of figures to include in Chapter 2. Different types of figures serve different purposes in a literature review. The most commonly used figures include A. Tables, organizing and summarizing. Information tables are ideal for comparing studies, summarizing key findings, and categorizing data. Example: comparing key studies in the field study author, so. Year key. Finding study. One Smith and Jones, 2020, found a strong correlation between emotional intelligence and leadership effectiveness. Study 2 Lee and Tan 2021 identified motivation as a mediating factor in career decision-making. Study 3 Gonzalez 2023 demonstrated that workplace culture influences job satisfaction. Best practices. Use tables when comparing multiple studies, methodologies, or findings. Keep tables simple. Avoid unnecessary complexity. Ensure table titles and captions clearly explain the content. B. Graphs. Showing trends and relationships. Graphs are useful for illustrating patterns, historical trends, or relationships between variables in past research. Common graph. Types. Line graphs show trends over time, e.g., the increase in research publications on a topic. Bar graphs compare different variables, e.g., percentage of studies using qualitative versus quantitative methods. Pie charts represent proportions, e.g., distribution of research topics within a field. Example: Trends in Research Publications on Career Development, 2015-2025. A line graph showing an increasing number of studies on career development from 2015 to 2025 can help demonstrate the growing relevance of the topic. Best practices. Use graphs only when necessary to avoid clutter. Label all axes, legends, and units clearly. Ensure that the source of data is properly cited. C. Conceptual diagrams, illustrating theories and frameworks. Conceptual diagrams help explain theoretical models, relationships between concepts, or research frameworks. Example: social, cognitive career theory, SCCT. Model a diagram depicting how self-efficacy, outcome expectations, and personal interests influence career choice can make theoretical explanations clearer. Best practices. Keep diagrams simple and easy to understand. Use arrows and labels to clarify relationships between elements. Ensure figures align with the written explanation in the text. D. Flowcharts. Explaining processes. Flowcharts are useful for illustrating step-by-step processes or research. Frameworks. Example: decision-making process in career development. a flowchart showing how individuals progress from career exploration to decision-making, influenced by various factors like skills and interests. Best practices. Use clear arrows to indicate the process flow. Label each step concisely. Ensure that the flowchart logically aligns with the discussion in the text. Best practices for using figures in Chapter 2 to ensure that figures are effective. Follow these best practices. Keep figures relevant. Only include figures that add value to the discussion. Unnecessary figures can clutter the document. Ensure high quality. Use clear, high-resolution images or graphs to maintain readability. Properly label figures. Each figure must have a title and caption explaining its content and relevance. Cite the source. If a figure is adapted from another study, cite the original source properly. Position figures correctly. Place figures close to the related text for seamless reading. Common mistakes to avoid. Overusing figures. Too many figures can be distracting and reduce the focus on written analysis. Lack of explanation. Every figure should be explained in the text to clarify its meaning and relevance. Unclear labels. Graphs and diagrams must have proper labels, legends, and units for accuracy. Poor formatting. Figures that are too small, pixelated, or misaligned reduce professionalism. Failure to cite sources. Any figure adapted from existing literature must be cited to avoid plagiarism. Example of proper figure integration in a literature review. Incorrect approach. Various studies have analyzed the leadership styles. Below is a graph showing research trends. Graph inserted without a title, caption, or explanation. Correct approach. Research on transformational leadership has grown significantly over the past decade. According to Johnson, 2021, studies on leadership development increased from 50 publications in 2015 to over 200 in 2025. As seen in Figure 1, the trend indicates a rising interest in leadership studies. Figure 1. Number of research publications on leadership, 2015-2025, graph inserted with title, source citation, and explanation. In the correct version, the graph is introduced properly, explained in the text, and placed logically within the discussion. Conclusion. Effective use of figures. In Chapter 2, using figures in Chapter 2 of a thesis enhances clarity, summarizes data efficiently, and engages readers. When applied correctly, tables, graphs, diagrams, and flowcharts help organize information, compare studies, and illustrate theoretical models. Key takeaways. Use tables to compare research findings and organize information clearly. Use graphs to show trends, relationships, and statistical patterns. Use conceptual diagrams to explain theories and research frameworks. Use flowcharts to illustrate step-by-step processes in literature. Label, cite, and explain every figure for clarity and accuracy. By strategically integrating figures, a literature review becomes more structured, engaging, and academically rigorous. If you find this content helpful, subscribe to stay updated on the next tips for writing. Chapter 2. Feel free to comment below with topics you'd like us to cover in future content. Thank you!